Webinars are a go-to tool for many startup companies who want to engage with a larger audience and establish themselves as industry experts. Doing a webinar might be daunting for many people, but it's actually easier than you think with proper preparation. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to host a killer webinar. Let's dive in. 54% of B2B professionals engage with webinar content once a week. So getting your strategy and your approach right is vital for engaging successfully with this huge potential lead base. Statistics suggest that websites solely about marketing or a sales pitch or come across like they're only for marketing purposes can discourage up to 78% of attendees from ever buying from your company. Your webinar needs to be informative, engaging, and add value to the attendees' lives. After all, these people have busy lives. They're business owners or they're working themselves, so they don't have time for aimless pitching or hearing something that they've heard other places before. So what should your webinar be about? Here are some general guidelines. Pick a topic that you can speak passionately about. Research how many other webinars already exist on that particular topic to avoid something that's been presented to death about already. I hear all the time from people, oh, I don't want my webinar to feel too polished or fake or salesy. Well, I'm gonna tell you, nothing's worse than attending a webinar that comes across unprepared or unpolished. Yes, you don't wanna be reading script word by word, but you wanna feel authentic and genuine. But I promise you this next tip, which is to prepare, is going to pay off in dividends. Prepare carefully. Plan every slide, every visual, every transition from one thought to the next. And try to ensure that your webinar starts with a great hook, like a story or a stat or a question, to ensure you get your audience's attention early on. One of the most important aspects of a webinar is having people listen to it and attend. So start advertising your webinar early, at least a few weeks in advance. Use your owned email addresses and social media to promote the webinar and drive more people to sign up. And don't expect that every person who signs up is going to attend. About a 50% attrition rate is pretty normal. Give attendees the option to ask questions at the end of your presentation. Sometimes you can have even a running list of questions and have someone from your team who can be answering them at real time. But if you don't have the resources to do that, leave space at the end for some Q&A. Test your streaming technology before the date and time of your webinar. No matter what, things can happen, I totally get that, but better to practice and make sure that everything is running smoothly and looks right before the day. You don't want to be doing your test run at the live event. Find ways to encourage audience interaction. These can be polls or quizzes or live Q&A. All of these increase the likelihood of keeping your audience's attention and keeping them engaged and staying to the end of your webinar. You've heard me talk a lot about the importance of branding, and your webinar is no different. Everything about your webinar should be on brand. This starts from the invitations you send to the registration page where they sign up, and of course, the slides, the visuals, anything in the presentation, it should all have your branding. One, because you want to have that consistent brand out there, but also on a webinar, it's often that people will take screenshots while you're presenting, and you want to make sure that your brand is there so that they remember you, and to help minimize the likelihood that they take your information and potentially pass it off as their own. But thinking more positively, you want to have a consistent brand out there, so think about that when it comes to how you're presenting on your brand as well. If you haven't already documented what your brand voice and tone are, I suggest you either watch some of my other videos, or if you need help with this, engage Arch Collective to help you build out your entire brand, including your messaging, your voice, and your visual brand. Keep visuals simple. Use contrasting colors. This is helpful for those who have disabilities, as well as for those who don't, to make things very clear and easy to digest. Another recommendation is to keep text short and use a large font. No one wants to read an entire novel on a slide, right? So my recommendation is less is more when it comes to text on a slide. Also, be sure to keep it jargon-free, and if you use acronyms, first spell it out, or at least verbally say what it means before just leaving an acronym on the screen. And remember, not all B2B buyers are tech experts. Sometimes they just want a product or service that makes their life easier, and they don't necessarily need to understand how it works in the background. It's also important to consider that not everyone in your audience is the same, and accessibility is super important. To make the biggest impact possible, you want to reach the largest audience possible. Making your webinar more accessible isn't just about having that good look for your company, it actually makes business sense. Consider sign language interpretation, or audio descriptions, or alt text for visual images. Talk to neurodiverse team members to make sure that your webinar content makes logical sense and that it flows well. If you're using an external webinar platform, check that it's compliant with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. We'll link it for you here. Remember to consider that not all attendees will be joining from the same type of device. Some may join by phone, others on an iPad, or others on their desktop computer. Optimizing recorded or live webinars for mobile devices could greatly increase your potential viewing numbers. Remove as many barriers to your content as possible. Think about the webinars that you've enjoyed the most, or those that have brought you or your company the most value. You can emulate that presentation style or content type. Just don't plagiarize directly. And if you want more advice on tech startup marketing channels, book a 15-minute introductory call with one of the Arch Collective team members. And of course, if you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you next time.